Ahoy! It is time to talk about the mid-season patch. As usual, tons to go through in this type of patch. Just a brief overview here. And because it's late in the night, and I don't want to sleep super late, we get started right away. First, a quick overview of the skins here. The Nickelodeon skins, you've already seen the trailer for, so we don't have to go into detail there. And then there are a bunch of skins from the Zodiac Battle Pass, which are kind of futuristic themed slash modern day, I guess, depending on how you want to look at it. But yeah, I think it's a really cool style. I really like this. And this is the Battle Pass coming out, whereas the Nickelodeon event, as expected, is actually an event. And then, last but not least, there's also Toxic Overlord Achilles in the Contaminated Chest. And in the live update afterwards, the bonus update afterwards, we have Honeybee Aphrodite and Lich Queen Bellona. And then in a secondary update afterwards, we have Glub Glub Gab, super fun, and Spirit Father Odin. Okay, so first we have the Nickelodeon event and Zodiac Battle Pass, of course, and we have the actual patch itself, which comes with the new glyphs and earring item tree and much more, as they say, and everything else we'll learn about in the future. So, for the Nickelodeon event, I haven't actually read through how exactly this works. There will be 4 directly purchasable Nickelodeon skins, and if you buy all 4, then you unlock Danny Phantom. Complete quests to receive flips to use on the Nickelodeon cosmetic grid. Flip a square on the cosmetic grid of your choosing to uncover a random Nickelodeon cosmetic item. So basically announcer packs, avatars, jump stamps, all that type of stuff as usual. Doesn't actually say how much you have to pay per skin. I'm assuming it's 600 or something discounted. That's interesting. We'll find out. Then we have the Zodiac Battle Pass for 600 gems and the plus version for 1200 gems. That's where all the skins are on that we looked at before, so we don't really need to talk about this in detail here. I think Heimdall the Lion is the free skin this time then. Smite Night comes back. It's a list of all the ones that are happening. Just gonna skip that, not really important. Tier 2 skins can now be bought for favor. They still can be bought for 250 gems, but they can also be bought for 25,000 favor. So they are relatively expensive, but give you a favor sync, I guess, and suppose they're not being bought much for the gem price, so that's kind of what they're doing. They're not releasing any new ones of them anyways. So that's the list of them. Skins not affected are Tier Monster, Xingtian, and Iron Gamer. Thor, because I guess they're branded in a way, so they don't count. And then we have Shadow skins, also no longer being clan exclusive, and you can buy them for 500 gems now, or for 50,000 favor. Pretty pricey, but at least you can get them if you didn't have the chance to get them before. And then we have quite a few bug fixes. I don't think there's anything super major in here, as far as I'm aware. Just glancing over it again to be sure. But from what I can tell, most of this, well, the Primal Fury dealing more damage than intended actually may be relatively relevant. And the speed buff doing a little bit too much damage. But yeah. Where we really want to go, so the actual changes. So we're going to skip over the bugs here a little bit. And this is where that begins. So Brawling is changed to basically not overlap with Antiheal. I'm trying to see if they actually describing it here. So basically what they're saying, we're changing the amount of time it takes for you to not be considered brawling in the duration of the Antiheal items to match, so the player should only be debuffed by one or the others. Will also increase the amount of healing from certain god abilities that remove the user from combat, such as Sun Wukong's ultimate. So brawling, time until brawling applies to out of combat guard increased from 3 seconds to 5 seconds, and you'll see the durations of some Antiheal items going down a little bit to match that essentially. So that's gonna, I think, gonna overall be a good change. I don't think them overlapping was really the primary design idea in the beginning anyways. Conquest gets a change to the XP share. So this is specifically for supports. The lowest level shared XP bonus is increased from 1.35 to 1.4. And the XP of the mid harpies is increased for both the mid elder harpy and small harpy. They had weirdly low XP values to begin with after all the changes. Like some of the camps got a lot, but they really got the short end of the stick. So that's pretty nice. So glyphs were introduced in the beginning of Season 9, were a major success, and players have been requesting more, and we are happy to deliver. And they want to make them a little bit more flexible so that you're not as forced into specific builds and have a few more options in terms of what you can get from glyphs. I am honestly surprised that glyphs are a major success or that people like them that much. I personally don't really like them that much. I think they're kind of making things very messy, especially for new players. It's very difficult to even understand how they fit in with the normal item system, like when you should buy them and all that stuff. And I also think that they kind of force certain items too much compared to others because, you know, they are better eventually at some point of the game. But I guess having more of them may solve that a little bit. Well, I hope that if they keep going in this direction, they at least implement them into the UI properly, because right now they still feel like an add-on. Just make a fourth row and put the glyphs in there for items that have it, instead of having these 3 rows and the plus, and then you click on the item and then you have to select it again. That's just super annoying. It just feels clunky and yeah, just slapped on. So the changes that we're seeing. The first one, Jotun's Vigor here stays unchanged, but Jotun's Cunning is now every time you damage an enemy god with an ability, you gain a stack of Wit. At 2 stacks, your next non-ultimate ability that damages an enemy gets 25% of its cooldown instantly refunded. Pretty interesting. There's another item later on with cooldown that can kind of enhance this, I suppose. And combining those could be very spicy. But yeah, I think 25% refund is something that is within realms of balance. It depends a lot on the guard, but it's also just one ability that you're using, right? So initially on the, like when they were testing it, they had a flat reduction on it, and that obviously made certain abilities extremely strong, like short cooldown specifically, made them very spammable. But with it being a percentage reduction now, that's not as much the case. So yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I think you also need to get 2 stacks, so you need to use 2 abilities first, and then your third ability will get the reset. So it's not like you get the reduction. So it's not like you get a massive amount. So I can't really see this being used that frequently, except for some very niche cases, to be honest, because it doesn't work on the old either. So really, you have to have one specific ability in mind that you want to use this with frequently. Then Rod of Tahuti, the first version remains unchanged, but we have perfect Rod of Tahuti now. Successfully damaging an enemy guard with an ability applies a mark for 3 seconds. Damaging them a second time with another ability consumes the mark and provides you with 10% movement speed for 2 seconds and reduces your non-ultimate cooldown, your non-ultimate abilities by 1.5 seconds. I'm assuming this means cooldowns. Only 1 mark can be active at a time and cannot be applied for 10 seconds after consuming the mark. Also, honestly, a bit of a weird one. Looks like it's mainly for the cooldown reduction here. Like, this one has a flat reduction by 1.5 seconds. So, yeah, Habwa comes to mind. But I'm not entirely sure what these 10% movement speed are coming from. So that's a bit of a weird one. I don't really know many guards that would make use of that aspect. And more so some that have short cooldowns making use of the short, well, the relatively short cooldown reduction, but across the board still, so it's pretty nice in that regard. Then we have Nimble Bancroft's Talon. Inherited Nimble Rod of Tahuti. For every 40 magical power you have, you gain 2% attack speed. I don't know. I guess, yeah, I guess, you know, like, magical ADCs will go into that now. It's weird because like Bancroft's Talon itself, it increases your power, so I guess it makes sense, but it's not a power focused build that goes into, but it could be like decently strong, especially on Freya. I think I don't know if it's so much on the other mage ADCs. I'm not sure. I'm trying to think if like anyone else would utilize like lifesteal builds to the same degree as as Freya has always done, but the other mage ADCs are just a bit more damage focused. So like it's still a good item though. Like don't get me wrong, right? It's now a high power item with lifesteal and attack speed to some degree. So it is basically what you want as a mage ADC in a way. So yeah, it's gonna be effective in some way. It's something where you really have to do the math on the effectiveness to really judge it, because it doesn't seem that much in most situations, but depends. I guess you could get more than 10-20% ish out of it, and then it depends a lot on how you build the mage ADC as well. Well, we'll see. And then we have Bancroft's Claw. Every 15 seconds you gain a stack of Hunger, maximum of 3. Abilities cast within 30 units of enemy guards consume a stack, dealing bonus damage equal to 0.5% of their max HP for each 75 magical power you have. Each guard damaged by Hunger provides you with a shield of 1% of your max HP for each 75 magical power you have. This cannot exceed 35% of your max HP. This is so weird. This is like, how much math are you supposed to do in the middle of a match to see if this is worth it for you? I also don't. I guess it's like a bruiser mage item mainly, because you get that shield and you deal some bonus damage, but it's also off their max HP. So you want to hit a tank here, God, and maybe it's like a soul lane item, like maybe Shankui solo wants this, but it's a strange mix. It's one of those items where I feel like if the numbers are strong enough and it's just like a ridiculous value that you get out of it, like the shield value gets way too high or something, then everyone would use it, and otherwise it's super niche. But we'll see. And then we have Executioner. The Ferocious Executioner gets Jotun's Ferocity. Your next basic attack marks an enemy guard. If you hit the enemy, the marked enemy, or the marked enemy hits you with a basic attack or ability, gain 1 stack. Each stack provides 2% increased damage towards the marked enemy, stacking up to 10 times or 20%. This effect can only occur once every 30 seconds. This is a lot scarier on Executioner, because that means that it will be used a lot more by ranged characters, by hunters, compared to previously mostly by assassins. Jotun's Ferocity. I mean, it can only happen once every 30 seconds, which I guess in a team fight might just be enough for one target, but I think that being combined with the protection reduction that applies, if you have like a good team that follows up on that, because I am thinking it doesn't have to actually state if it provides additional damage towards the enemy for yourself or for everyone. I'm actually curious about that. I have to look real quick if Jotun's Ferocity is specifying that further, because that's something I just don't quite know. Does it mention here? No, it doesn't actually say. Assuming it might only be for you, not for everyone. Hopefully. I think otherwise that would be busted. If it's Executioner on top of bonus damage for everyone, that would be wild. I imagine, at least. And then the other version is the one that I actually like a lot more, just because it's interesting. Don't necessarily think it's good or bad, but it's interesting. Basic attacks against an enemy reduce your target's physical protection by 17.5% for 3 seconds. Maximum 2 stacks. But your attack speed is capped at 1.75. And Silver Branch can't be used unless you like stack massive amounts of attack speed, in which case it still only starts stacking at 2.5, so don't do that. This is super unique. This is something that you would think puts it more towards like ability focused hunters that really want to build in that direction. But then they would usually also not be building Executioner, because they would be building Titan's Bane primarily, or whatever else they want to have like in there for percentage pen. It doesn't have to be Titan's Bane, it could be a Heartseeker as well or something, but it wouldn't be Executioner is my point. And through this, it kind of creates a new type of hunter build slash playstyle if this is effective enough. And it's a lot of pens, so I could see it being effective. And it would also work for certain other like attack canceling characters where you quickly get to basic attacks in, like on the patch notes, let me mention Nemesis, for example. But yeah, I'm very curious to see which guards this will work out for. Is this technically not an insane pen value? I mean, this is like old days execution. If you look all the way back, execution used to be like flat pen and percentage pen at the same time. It used to be crazy. So yeah, this is probably not the most ridiculous version of executioner we've seen by far, but it's a very spicy one. Question is if it's gonna be like worth the extra price for the glyph and all that, but if it is, like if it works out, I could see this being very interesting, very cool for specific playstyles, and I like that. This is like one of my favorite changes. Then we have Magi's Cloak, which is now gonna be glyph upgrade as well. First one is Magi's Shelter. Whenever your passive is consumed, the nearest allied guards within 25 units gains protection from a single hard crowd control effect for 5 seconds. If this passive is consumed before the time runs out, they gain 1 second of crowd control immunity. Dev team also talked about how they didn't really manage to do that effectively by running it on the whole team. They think this is more effective if you basically just have one person or 2 people with it, because then it can't override each other, or people don't have a bubble all the time anyways. I think this is a very cool feature because it's just a 5-second time frame, right? You have to make use of it, but if your teammate follows up or follows through with it, then it can be very effective. I think in competitive, this is going to be extremely spicy because it's going to turn many situations around if it's being used. Whereas in non-competitive, a lot of people don't tend to build items that help their teammates much, so let's see if it be built even nearly as much. And the other one is Magi's Revenge. The first enemy guard to hit you with hard crowd control while you're protected becomes marked for revenge for 5 seconds. Guards marked for revenge cause enemy guards within 40 units to move 20% faster towards them and take 10% increased damage. This one is scary. If you are like fighting a support that has Magi's Revenge, or I mean, you're gonna have to like break the bubble if they're engaging on you. Or it could even be a damage dealer technically, but I guess then you have more chance to just kill them first. But that mark, it is somewhat limited by the 40% by the 40 units, but I think the increase will still apply even if you're not initially within the 40 unit radius. As long as you can get close, I think that's enough. Like the only thing that holds this back from being completely terrifying is the 5-second duration. So players really have to be quick and have to notice that you're marked and stuff. But definitely one of the things where I'm like, wow, this could be very, very cool, especially as a support if you can really lock that down. Then we have the new masks. All masks in the current iteration are removed. The new mask will now be starter items. There's a big wall of text here that we'll just skip and we'll just figure this out on our own. So the Protector's Mask is now a starter item with 125 health and 100 mana. Passive decrease damage dealt by 6% plus 0.25% per your guard's level, and decreased damage taken by 6% plus 0.25% per your guard's level. Getting the assist for an enemy minion or jungle monster dying will provide you with 8 bonus gold and restore 15 health and 15 mana. If you are not within 30 units of an allied guard for 20 seconds, passive is disabled until you're near an allied guard again, blah, blah, blah. So basically, this is a full-on support item for non-traditional supports now. And Lono's Mask has 300 health, 200 mana, 10% CCR, and the passive is gain 5 stacks of Cowardice. Each stack reduces your damage dealt and healing output by 10%. For each 60 protections from this item, remove a stack of Cowardice. When you remove a stack of Cowardice, gain a stack of Bravery. For each stack of Bravery, gain 3% damage mitigation and provide 7 physical and magical protections to all allied guards within 55 units. This is crazy. This is like a very interesting spin. I think I like this. I have no idea how this like stacks up to Old Lono's mask, but I think I like the overall idea. Actually want to see what the base stats on Old Lono's were, just so we have like a rough idea. So previously Lono's mask already had the same health and had 20% CCR and came with 40 protections each. So it takes you, can you even get there? What's the maximum? 5 stacks. Okay, so you have 35 instead now, but as an aura, so that's a lot better, arguably. And the maximum of 5 stacks, if it's reached, yeah, the damage reduction would still be exactly the same. But as far as I can tell, your damage output is no longer reduced at all, or you're healing. Because now if you get the 5 stacks and use the 5 stacks of bravery and remove the 5 stacks of cowardice, you would just be left with the mitigation and the extra protection, and you would not have any of the downsides. So that is very cool. I really like that. I think that's very, very interesting. As someone who really likes non-traditional supports and really likes Lono's mask as an item, I'm a fan. And I'm very much fine with this being like purely put in a support player niche. Like, I understand that this, especially like the first part, hurts solo lane Lono masks build, but I'm fine with that trade-off, honestly, because I think it just allows more flexibility in how the items like can be balanced later down the road. And then the other option here is Fighter's Mask, which can only be purchased by Warriors and Guardians. 10 physical power, 50 magical power, 10 HP 5, quite a fair bit, and 10% CDR. So pretty decent starter actually from the base stats alone. Passive, increase damage dealt by 6% plus 0.25% per level. Increase damage dealt, taken by 6% plus 0.25% of your guard's level. And this item grants 2 MP5 per 10% of your missing mana. Your abilities deal 10 bonus ability true damage to minions. So, solo damage output, I'm assuming? Like, this looks like it's a stat that you would put on a solo item. So, is this going to be like solo Fighter's Mask again? And then we have Rangda's Mask. 60 physical power, 80 magical power, 20 HP 5, and 10% CDR. Passive, gain 5 stacks of weakness. Each stack increases your damage taken by 10%. For each 65 physical power or 90 magical power from item, remove a stack of weakness. When you remove a stack of weakness, gain a stack of strength. For each stack of strength, gain 3% damage dealt and 2% movement speed. I don't know if that's gonna work out. 65. That's quite a lot in terms of strength. I think the stacks on Lonos, as far as I can tell, should be a fair bit easier to gain. 60 prots, yeah, no, that's much easier to get than that much physical power. And yeah, if you put this like on a solo aggressive start, then you're still probably gonna end up building some defensive item at some point. So I guess it's not really built for that purpose. I'm not really sure what place you would be able to use this effectively. Like, maybe like when you put a Guardian in middle, the bonus true damage and MP5 would kind of help as well. And then you just build, yeah, I guess if you put like a character in middle that is not traditionally put there, and just boost your damage, it could work. But it forces you so heavily into full damage, basically. I don't know. I mean, maybe people will find a niche to make it work. Maybe people will figure out a way to make it effective. Then we have the new item tree. Completely new. Starting with Mystical Earrings, 400 gold, 15 MP5. That's it. Tier 2, Gleaming Ear Cuffs, 20 physical power, 30 magical power, 15% attack speed, 15 MP5. Jeweled Studs for 1,400 gold. The other one was 1,300. 30 physical power, 50 magical power, 10% cooldown reduction and 20 MP5. And the Rose Spike Earrings, 1200, is 200 health, 15 HP5, and 15 MP5. Okay, so one of these builds into two. The last one builds into two different items. The other one's just built into one. First one is Griffonwing Earrings, 2200 gold. This is designed to make your basic attacks feel more like a hit scan shot. So 40 physical power, 60 magical power, 25% attack speed, 15 MP5, basic attack projectile speed increased by 40%, and basic attack damage reduced by 15%. Class lock to hunters and mages only. This is so strange yet interesting to me. I feel like 40% increased projectile speed will make you hit shots so much more consistently that a 15% damage reduction is probably worth it for most players. That's my prediction. The question is how you can effectively fit in a build, but it has like all the stats you want, I guess. So I think this is a very, very interesting item. Also wonder if this could somehow technically play together with the new Executioner. It's like less attack speed, but more projectile speed. And then just really heavy hitting also. I don't know. Probably not. It's probably better to have more attack speed to really make use of the hit scan projectiles as frequently as possible. Because, you know, there's more shots that you're less likely to miss because you have much higher projectile speed. Very, very interesting. Can't say how this will feel because 40, like, you can't really tell how much 40% really is until you feel it in game, feel how much faster the projectile really is. But very interesting concept. Then we have Sphinx Baubles, 55 physical power, 80 magical power, 10% cooldown reduction, 30 MP5. Passive cooldown reduction cap increased from 40 to 60%. Ability damage decreased by 20%, and ability healing decreased by 20%. Probably doesn't matter. Probably doesn't matter that the damage is decreased, the healing is decreased, because the CC is going to be the same. So if you can get this in your build, especially as a support, this is going to be massive. Obviously, 2,700 gold, not exactly a cheap support item. And you want to get to the point where it's effective first, right? You want to get to 40% cooldown reduction before you even consider building this, because once you build it, then you get to 50%, and then you can get the other 10%. So it's a massive investment. It's definitely a very late game item, but a very interesting late game item. Like I'm thinking Baron Samdi support with a Lono's mask, and then if you can get to it in late game, you get Sphinx Baubles and spam everything everywhere. But it's gonna be an uphill battle to get to this point. I feel like this is gonna be like a very strong snowball item as well, but I don't know how often we will really see it. But the effect itself is super cool. And I think the 20% extra cooldown reduction is probably gonna be value most of the time, but losing 20% damage and losing 20% healing can also be a pretty significant downside for many gods that will stop them from justifying building it. Next one is Manticore Spikes. 350 health, 30 HP5, 20 MP5, and 20% crowd control reduction. When you hit an enemy guard with hard crowd control, they drop a spike on the ground. When you or an ally pick up that spike, they gain a buff that causes their next ability to deal bonus damage equal to 3% of their maximum HP. This effect is doubled if you are the one who picks up the spike. Spikes last 7 seconds on the ground. They cannot stack. Pick up another spike. When you have one, refreshes the buff duration. So, primarily something you want to pick up on characters that have high health. I'm assuming. Yeah, it's a buff on the character so it scales on your HP, like the user's HP, not the enemy's HP. And since it's a pickup that gets a doubled effect when you pick it up yourself, you want to have this as a support or as a solo laner. There's a lot of HP, but not really much else. So I wonder. It also doesn't specify if there's any cooldown on this. Seems like it just can happen as long as you have any crowd control. Interesting. What happens if you pick up... What happens if you hit multiple targets with crowd control? It's gonna be something stupid like PLA 2. Hit the whole team. Spike everyone afterwards. I don't know. This one I really like. This one I think is a really fun one. That I feel like someone is gonna find a way to completely abuse though. I feel like this is gonna be one that is somehow gonna be completely broken because 6% of someone's max HP, of a tank's max HP, that could be a lot. Does it actually say what type? Is it true damage? I think they said on the patch show that it's normal damage, but it doesn't specify what type of normal damage, so I'm not sure. It might also be true damage. It doesn't say physical or magical. Don't know. And we have Fae-Blessed hoops, 300 health, 20 HP 5, 40 MP 5. Each time an allied guard dies within 70 units of you, you heal an allied guard, or you heal an allied guard with an ability. A flower drops from your ally that can be picked up by you or an allied guard. Picking up the flower gives that guard a shield equal to 7.5% of their max HP that lasts for 8 seconds. It doesn't stack, the new shield refreshes the duration. Flowers last 7 seconds on the ground. Someday time again. I think this is quite interesting. It sounds quite strong. If you have a guard that can frequently AoE heal, having them pick up shield. I don't know how this work with Yemoja, for example. Like, she can already spam heals and shields, and now she could like drop another shield very frequently while doing what she already does, unless those shields don't stack. Sounds kind of scary. Also, they mentioned the long-term players recognize a small nod to the past, so this is a Naja thing. Naja's old passive, I think. Well, I don't know. This one is a bit like, I feel like this is gonna be like too strong on some healing guards and then very lackluster on the rest. Not entirely sure how that's gonna play out. Brawler's Beat Stick decreased the Antiheal debuff duration from 6 to 5 seconds. Again, this matches the whole brawling thing. Yada yada. Same for Divine Ruin, Toxic Blade. Baubles Hammer gets the rework it deserved since the start. Old stats are gone. New stats, 50 physical power, 70 magical power. Deals damage now. It's no longer health. It's no longer, well, like, it's no longer mainly health. It's still 150 health, but it's not a survival item anymore. And 10% cooldown reduction. 10% also better in my opinion, because then you can just build more beforehand without feeling guilty. And the passive is now, after casting ability, your next basic attack is additional true 80 damage. After hitting a basic attack empowered by Baubles Hammer, you activate your active non-ultimate cooldowns are reduced by 1 second, as before, and you are healed for 120 health instead of the previous 5%. For most assassins, that's not going to really make a difference. In some cases, they might actually end up getting a little bit more healing than they would have before. For a warrior that would previously run it, or any tankier player, big difference. So, yeah, I think this is a much better place for this item to be in. And I'm glad it's finally happening. Took them long enough. Amulet of the Stronghold, increased conversion rate of the passive from 10 to 15%. I think that is converting physical protection into magical protection. Is that correct? Yeah. 15% of your physical protection is converted into magical protection. They did this section without actually describing the previous passive, so you just have to memorize them all. Then the Amulet of Silence is also one that I have to look up. That was so previous passive, gain a stack each time an enemy within 40 units casts an ability. At 5 stacks, your next basic attack against the enemy guard will an enemy guard will silence them for 1.5 seconds. And this can only happen once every 45 seconds. Now happening every 30 seconds. Then we have some stuff about the support starter items, which can now be upgraded at level 15 instead of 20, and that includes Lono's Mask as well. So I think that's good. I think level 15 is a good point. I am wondering if that's abusable somehow in solo or something, but not too sure how. So yeah, I think it's probably fine. Sentinel's Gift gets bonus gold increased from 7 to 8. Sentinel's Embrace added 6 gold per 5 seconds. Pretty decent. So the race between Sentinel's Embrace and Compassion basically going on once again. Relic Dagger increased Relic cooldown reduction from 30 to 40 seconds. I think this is still like a really interesting item. I know it's not meta at the moment, but this is one of those items where I should always be like, yeah, this could be cool in certain situations, and then somehow end up not using it. But well. Tyrannical Playtime increased minion buffs from 20% health and attack speed to 25% health and attack speed. I don't know if that's really going to do anything, to be honest. Likewise, Mail of Renewal increased physical protection, magic protection, both from 20 to 30. Pretty significant buff, but I don't know. Mail of Renewal it's just weird. I don't know if this will help it find its place. And then we have the Sledge increased CCR from 20 to 30%, kind of offsetting. Well, I mean, Sledge has got its phases, but I don't really know if CCR is valued enough. I think it's gonna make it better, but people will not see it that way. But there's some other stuff happening with CCR, so this might actually be more value than it seems at first glance. Shield of Regrowth passive now adds 15 physical power and 30 magical power for the 4 seconds buff duration. I like this. I think it's cool, but also it seems like a relatively weirdly low value. Like when you ever think, wow, I wish I had 15 extra physical power. And it's not exactly like this is a passive that you get super frequent, so I don't know. Maybe like if there's any guard that can like very consistently proc it like on the 10-second cooldown, maybe they can make use of it. Just otherwise it's a relatively defensive item. That makes like power a strange choice, but hey. Especially because you're healing, so it's in a situation where you're already like trying to get away maybe. Pythagoras Piece remove 10% magic penetration, added 10% cooldown reduction. Increased health from 200 to 250. I feel like that's a revert. Oh yeah, it actually mentions here that's a revert basically. So yeah, I think that's better. I think that just makes Pythagoras Piece more logical in terms of it was never useful as a pen item because it used to be like a support item in some ways as well. And if we can go back to that, I think that's better for it. Sunday again. Well, it's not actually a Sunday item, but hey, I'm just on a Baron Sunday trip today. Then we have Staff of Murden, all passive removed. New passive, when your ultimate ability has finished casting, you gain Murden's Rage, which provides 25% increased damage dealt, decaying to 2.5% damage dealt over 8 seconds. At the end of the 8 seconds, you lose Murden's Rage. This can occur only once every 45 seconds. This actually sounds very strong to me. I think I'll have to look up what the current stats versus price on Staff of Murden are, but I think this is scary. Yeah, it's 2,600 gold. Already has a decent amount of power. Like, for any mage that starts with their ultimate, I think this is very, very good. Like Habwa, for example, like where you often hard engage. Well, not that often, but sometimes. Sometimes hard engage with the ultimate. Yeah, I'm trying to think like which mages really frequently start off with their ultimate. There's actually not as many as I thought. But for those who do, it's a lot of extra damage. You just don't get that extra damage for the ult, but also just 45 seconds, not that long, so yeah. I think this is much better than the messy old cooldown reduction passive that it had beforehand. So yeah, Sphinx Baubles is kind of taking that over now. And yeah, I think it's just way cleaner. So I think that part is definitely good. And Staff of Murden might be more interesting, like for burst mages and stuff now. For burst mages that use their ultimates first. Then we have Celestial Legion Helm, added 4% crit damage reduction per stack, maximum of 20%. Very interesting. They don't even take anything away from it. It's literally just a buff, just that extra effect, which is a good effect. Item currently has 55 magical power, 30 physical protection. Yeah, okay, it doesn't really have that much, and then it has the extra protection on top of that. This is gonna hurt for any hunter, but then it's also just for one shot, I think, because it would stack the same way as the physical protection, I'm assuming. I like this, though. I think this is an interesting change. All right, they're also looking to buff some of the lesser seen relic upgrades. Brace of Illumination. Buff duration increased from 8 to 12 seconds. I actually have to look up what Brace of Illumination does. The lesser used relics that I feel like everyone has forgotten about. On use, a light sprite appears that patrols back and forth an 80 unit line, revealing enemies along the way. Wait, it doesn't even... Oh, no. Oh, it's the main buff that gets increased. I was like, well, how long is that even working? But no, it's the field that increases power above half health and movement speed below half health. That part gets its duration increased to 12 seconds, I think. Drowned Ankh increased miasma damage from 2% of current HP to 4% of the current HP. That's the damage on the ground. That is actually quite significant. It's obviously not valued that much at the moment, but like doubling the damage, that's every 0.5 seconds. So if you can lock someone in that, 8% of your health per second, is that true damage? It doesn't state anywhere. I don't know. But if you could keep them there for the 6 seconds, that's what? 48% of their HP? That's pretty scary. I would definitely say that's on the scary end of things. Like, you really have to lock an enemy down. You have to have like an Odin cage or something, and they have no escapes left. But the damage seems interesting, at least. Cloak of the Avatar increased knockback strength from by 33%. That's, I don't know. That doesn't really sound like much. I don't know how significant an increase in knockback strength in percentage, like how much further it knocks them. I don't know if there's like any like baseline for, like, I know like knock up height, sometimes the percentage value seems much different from how much it actually feels like. I don't know if this is the same for knockback, but I don't know. I don't know if that's really gonna be a big deal. Chaotic Beats changed passive from 7% of current health as magical damage to 5% of current health as true damage. That is usually going to be a lot more in most situations. So gotta make it a little bit more interesting, but I don't know. I don't know if you're really looking to deal damage when using beats anyways. That's all I'll say. Then we have Emblem of Trembling Terror. Decreased health threshold for the tremble to occur from 30% of max HP to 15% of max HP. That's dealing 15% of their health in damage. So that's actually pretty manageable. That should trigger the trembling effect fairly frequently. Could be an interesting one. Forced CC for those who can afford it, to build into it. Sundering Blast. Increased target damage taken increase from 5% to 7.5%. Sunder always is kind of like gamble. Always got to be a little bit careful not to make it too strong all of a sudden. I do imagine 2.5% will not run that risk. But then with the other damage increases coming in, who knows, maybe run into a damage increase meta. Thorns of Overgrowth. Increased radius of the passive from 55 to 70 units. That passive being stack of 5% movement speed and attack speed for all enemy guards within a 70 units radius now. Okay. That's fair. 70 units seems like still a reasonable amount for that. And okay, that's just miscellaneous, doesn't matter. Then we have diminishing returns. This is important. This is a complete overhaul like of how crowd control diminishing returns work. So diminishing return stack will now be visible on the buff bar, and this maximum count of these diminishing return stacks is increased from 2 to 4. Stacks last 15 seconds and duration is refreshed on each new application. That was the same way before. Crowd control reduction per stack is decreased from 40 to 20%. So essentially a single CC ability will only apply 20% CCR through diminishing returns now. So generally CC is getting buffed by this a fair bit, but there are some exceptions. We'll get to that. Diminishing returns can no longer be applied to yourself or allies, and fix many code-driven displacement abilities that previously did not apply diminishing returns. All right, now let's get into this. So crowd control is getting overhauled a little bit. Hard CC is now defined as any crowd control that makes it impossible to do at least one of the following actions: basic attacks, non-movement abilities, and movement inputs. As such, roots are now considered as hard CC, which also mean that Magi's Cloak will break through roots, as I understand it. True hard CC is a new form of a new subclassification of hard CCs defined as hard CCs that are not affected by diminishing returns. As such, true hard CCs apply 2 stacks of diminishing returns, which is essentially as much as the old value was on a single hard CC anyways. This includes banishes, grabs, knockbacks, knockups, polymorphs, and pulls. Soft CCs are now defined as any crowd control that makes it more difficult to do a specific action, including basic attacks, non-movement abilities, and movement inputs. Soft CCs neither apply nor are affected by stacks of diminishing returns. So Intoxicates and Trembles are now considered soft CCs. She don't know what that means for Kabrak, and I thought that was always gonna be not sure. I don't know. And I thought there used to be DR on slows as well. It's not mentioned here. If they're not affected, so not sure. Oh no, here. Individual abilities can apply more than 2 stacks of diminishing returns if the ability includes multiple times of CC. No, never mind, that's something else. And then there are some diminishing returns adjustments to kind of offset that. So some guards have double CC in a single ability, and they increase the duration of the follow-up stuns in order to make it so that you're not having a shorter stun now than you had on the previous patch. So that's Anher's Impale, Ares No Escape, Ability's Gravity Surge, Daji's Powwow, and Gilgamesh Dropkick. They all have like a pull, push, whatever, knockback first, and then they have the stun, and the stun duration should stay the same. But what's important is it still applies 2 stacks of diminishing returns, so any follow-up CC is still going to be, well, it's going to be as bad as it was on this patch, but other CCs don't have the same issue. So I don't know if this might actually like decrease the value of these cards a little bit anyways, since you want to avoid stacking too many DR stacks too quickly, obviously, if you can, when you now have the option to stack them longer, slower. And they say that known issues are the Wild Hunt on Janus is only applying 1 stack of DR instead of 2, and Hero's Polymorph is only applying 1 stack instead of 2. That is something they're looking to fix. But yeah, this whole thing is gonna massively change how many guards feel and how balanced in the game is. I think CC, especially with the other change with the item that provides you with up to 60% con reduction, is gonna be a whole different beast once things are established. With our Kwang, Dragon King's Sword decreased time it takes to get a stack from 12 to 10 seconds, and Water Illusion increased magical power scaling from 60 to 70%. Nothing all too big here. Cerberus, Spirit of Death, increased healing reduction applied to nearby enemies from 20 to 25%. Makes sense given that some other anti-heal is getting slight nerfs. And Paralyzing Spit increased base damage from 40 to 160 to 50 to 170, which is a revert from a previous nerf. Cupid, Heartbomb increased the damage done to minions from 50 to 6% on both the initial hit and explosion. This might be relevant because this might bump his clear here and there. Share the Love increased the base heal per heart from 30 to 110 to 40 to 140. So especially higher ranks get a decent boost to healing here. Scoria's Strife increased damage from 60 to 220 to 80 to 240. Flat buff. Relic Behavior decreased cooldown from 16 to 15 seconds. Nothing big here either, but might help. The Scotia might actually benefit from Staff of Murden, for example. She can often use the ultimate relatively early in the fight and then follow up with mobility, especially because she can reduce cooldown. So that might actually help him more, buff her more than these changes might. Could be interesting. Same with Hera, actually, with the ultimate. Commanding Presence increased cooldown reduction on Argus from 1 to 1.5 seconds. Increased cooldown reduction on Commanding Presence from 0.33 to 0.5 seconds. So yeah, no, I actually think this is funny. It's funny they're buffing the guards that actually make use of their ultimates early in a fight, often, when they're also buffing Staff of Murden. It could turn out very bad. We'll see. Hercules, decreased cooldown from 14 to 13 seconds on Driving Strike. And Earthbreaker decreased cooldown from 14 to 12 seconds to 13 to 11 seconds. I feel like he already got a buff very recently, last patch or so. Guys just keeps getting buffs. Don't want to see Herc, please. Hunbats, Overhead Smash. Hunbats is now knock up and knockback immune while channeling this ability. Finally. Increased base damage from 75 to 290 to 85 to 305. This is beautiful. I don't know what took them so long. They're even saying it has been requested for a long time. It's gonna make Hunbats feel so much nicer. Like, it's gonna make him feel way less like an old bot because he actually has something in his kit other than that to counter things directly, and he can actually get his damage off a lot more reliably. So yeah, big fan. Very big fan of this change. Nike, Rend, decreased cooldown from 14 to 14, scaling down to 12 seconds. You're gonna level at first most of the time anyway, so that's a decent buff. Barrier Formation increased damage from 70 to 310 to 80 to 320. It's a little flat increase, probably not gonna do all too much. Then we have Pele's Pyroclast, increased the return damage from 20 damage per shot to 30 damage per shot. Could actually be quite interesting. This is actually a fair bit of extra damage when you think about it, you know, especially once you get to the higher levels. So I'm not entirely sure how strong this will be, but it's definitely an interesting one. Serket, Deathbane increased base damage from 50 to 122 per hit to 50 to 130 per hit. So it's a little revert here. And Last Breath increased damage mitigation from 35 to 50%. So basically they want to make her more towards an assassin again, and they're kind of succeeding at it, but they're kind of having to give her certain concessions essentially to make her effective as an assassin again. It's a bit ironic. And then we have Ares. Shackles now deals 40, or like, this is like the whole thing here. It's cool. There's some guards that just can't jungle well, and they want them to be able to jungle better because they could technically fit into the role of a jungler. So they're just giving them like buffs to jungle camp damage specifically. First one of that is Ares with Shackles, dealing 40% extra damage to jungle monsters. Then we have Danzaburou, who deals 40% extra damage to jungle monsters with Alluring Spirits. To be honest, Danzaburou also clears pretty decently with this one already if you know the bounce spots. So this should be a really quick clear for him, but he does feel a bit awkward in the jungle in other ways. It's more like surrounding his ganks because he's a hunter after all. But it's fine. Like, I think this is a good buff that could help with that a little bit. And then we have the Morrigan. This makes me very happy. I love playing the Morrigan in the jungle, but she just doesn't feel good in the jungle. Now Deadly Aspects will deal 30% additional damage against jungle monsters, making that a lot more effective. And then you can actually max the 1 because it deals more damage and not play so much around the 2 and feel like, wow, okay, I'm using the 2, so I should just be playing her in a lane because it's more effective anyways. So yeah, I like this a lot. Don't know if it's actually going to end up in people maxing the 1 consistently or just leveling it a little bit early for clear, but I do like that this is a thing for Morrigan. I actually got really excited when I saw Chang'e underneath this because I thought Chang'e is getting the same buffs, but she's getting different buffs. But these buffs are also really cool. Because Chang'e is getting kind of turned into a battle mage. And she gets an HP increase from 574 to 650. And the HP per level is increased from 84 to 88, which makes a total health at level 20 2,410 instead of 2,254. But especially the first level increases pretty big, and I think you'll feel that when she has more survivability in lane, and then she can also stay in lane because she can just buy stuff from there. That's gonna be noticeable. And Crescent Moon Dance now also deals 15% extra damage to minions, so really buffs in every way kind of. And yeah, I'm not entirely sure where this is coming from, but I guess she hasn't been like a mainstay lately, but I like it. Thor, Janus attunement, minions now take 100% damage from the return swing. Completely fair. I don't know why that was even still a thing. It was never a problem to begin with. And well, I guess it makes him a little bit better at laning, which might help. Yeah, it's mentioned as well as solo, so maybe they want him to be a bit more present in solo. So Shankui increased the base physical, the base physical protections from 11.2 to 18.2. So makes him a fair bit more bruisery, actually. I already felt like he always felt relatively tanky, even in early game, but the more you know. So let's see. And then, very big other change, non-conquest balance in-game icon. Essentially, what they're doing is they're doing percentage changes to certain guards that over or underperform outside of Conquest on a regular basis. And you can see them here. So our Porsche is getting some nerfs, deals like 5% less damage, 10% less damage to minions, 5% non-ult cooldowns, and 10% ultimate cooldown. And I'm not going to read out all of them for every single guard, but I'm just going to give you an idea of how this works. This is basically like the pattern you're going to see. Like Artemis gets some nerfs, especially cooldown here. Ares gets a fair bit of a nerf to his cooldown, which makes a lot of sense because, especially in Arena, he's very, very strong with that. Capri gets a couple of nerfs, which is interesting, actually. Like, I didn't think that Capri was, like, so much different outside of Conquest, but apparently is. Thought he was just strong everywhere. And Zeus gets some nerfs as well. So a lot of these clearly targeted towards Arena, but some also towards Joust. The nerfs will always apply for all game modes except Conquest. So, yeah, across the board. I think even Duel should be included if I'm not mistaken. Doesn't mention ranked. Just says that it affects all modes. So, yeah, probably also Duel. And then we have buffs. On the other hand, we have our Kwang getting a little bit of a buff here and there. Arachne, Bakasura, Camelot. A lot of the assassins, obviously. Janus, who also just can't make use of wards that much. Set, Circuit. Not really surprising that all of these perform a little bit worse outside of Conquest. Then we have the voice actors here. And that brings us to the end of the patch notes. Now, what I will say is that this patch brings a lot of changes in terms of item meta, and a lot of changes in terms of how the game feels in terms of CC. But it's surprisingly mild for a mid-season patch, if that makes sense, just because we just recently had such a drastic change that basically overhauled how the entire game functions in terms of survivability and whatnot, and time to kill. And compared to that, this mid-season patch is almost lean, even though it's still a big patch, don't get me wrong. I think my problem with it is that I wish we would just go back to traditional items and not to glyphs and more glyphs and more glyphs and more glyphs. But on the other hand, like the new items and the changes to like Lonos and stuffs, I think are very good ones. I think a lot of the stuff in this patch is very, very interesting. I would have just rather seen some more new items that take on some of the effects that the glyphs have now taken on than seeing it being done this way. But maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm alone with that opinion. Maybe most people actually like the glyphs and I'm just the old man yelling at the cloud because because I haven't played with them enough or something. Well, anyways, overall, interesting patch. I think mostly a good patch, though I was kind of hoping for like more map related stuff as well. I was hoping for some Conquest map changes, but maybe we'll see them just a little bit later in the year or something. Maybe they're not scheduled for now, but we might see another seasonal change essentially. And yeah, maybe they're also just preparing for the next Conquest map at this point. Who knows? Maybe they're just already working on what's coming next year. We'll find out. Either way, thank you very much for watching. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing and clicking the bell. Other than that, I hope to see you for the next one soon. Duke Sloth, out.